Hey everyone, this is Tarekith, and I just wanted to do a quick tutorial about what some of us in the Electron users forums are calling the Crossfader transition trick. I didn't actually come up with this technique, but I thought I'd do a video so people can see exactly how it's done and use it in their own live sets because it's a pretty useful trick. The basic idea is that when the crossfader is all the way to the left, you'll hear the internal sounds from the Octatrack as well as whatever is connected to your inputs. In this case, I have a machine drum connected to input AB. And then when the crossfader is all the way to the right, you'll hear a previously recorded loop of those two sound sources, and this will let you switch patterns on the fly without stopping audio, and I will demonstrate this once it's all set up. So the first thing we need to do is go ahead and pick a track for our loop recorder. In this case I'm going to use track 1, and I need to assign a record buffer there. The record buffers are in your flex machine list at the very top above your user samples. In this case I'm going to use record buffer 1. The next thing we need to do is set up our triggers on that track to trigger recording and trigger playback. It's important to remember the Octatrack you can playback and record both on the same track. So the first thing we're going to do is enter record mode, press the record button once, and then we want to edit that, so I'm going to hold function and bank to enter the edit screen. The very first option here is our triggers. You can see we don't have any triggers placed yet. These are playback triggers, so I'm going to go ahead and put one at the very start of my 4-bar pattern. That's the only one I need. If you see, I can cycle through, and the other measures are blank, just one. Now I'm going to scroll down to the record trigger screen and also put another trigger. This is record trigger now in the same location. It's important to specify which inputs or the internal sounds you're going to be actually recording with that record trigger though, and a lot of people seem to kind of miss that point. So what you need to do is hold down the record trigger, and now you can select inputs AB, inputs CD, or if you press the MIDI button here, that means the internal Octatrack sounds. So I want to sample the internal Octatrack sounds and inputs A and B. Slightly confusing, you don't actually want to select inputs A and B for this trick. If you have the internal sounds, the Octatrack selected with this MIDI button, it will also capture whatever is connected to the inputs. If you select the inputs as well, it seems to like double up the input signal and you get a lot of distortion. It doesn't work right. So you can sample the internal Octatrack sounds and anything going through inputs AB and input CD just by selecting the MIDI button here. And again, make sure you hold down the record trig to do that. Now I'm going to exit record mode, and we need to go to the mixer screen. Oh, I'm sorry. The first thing we need to do is assign our scenes. So for scene A, I have scene 1 assigned. Hold down scene A to do that. Scene B, I have scene 2 assigned. I recommend you keep the same assignments across all of your patterns and banks. It just makes things easier for playing live to make sure that this transition trick works correctly. Now we're going to go ahead and enter the mixer screen. And if I hold down scene B while in the mixer screen, you'll see that the direct parameters change to X direct, and that means crossfader direct. And this basically controls the volume coming into your inputs AB and input CD. So while holding down the scene B button still, I'm going to go ahead and change these parameters so they both say min. This means that when the crossfader is all the way over to the left, we don't hear any of our live signal coming in the inputs. And then if I press scene A, you'll see that it says X direct 61. That's just the overall volume that I found worked best for my inputs. This way the machine drum overall volume matches the volume of the Octatrack. You might need to play with this actual value depending on what kind of input signal you're feeding the Octatrack. You don't have to use 61, so feel free to play around with that. The next thing we're going to do is exit and then go to the amp screen for track 1, which we're already at. And again, if we hold down scene B button, you'll see we get a new parameter that pops up when I press that. That's the crossfader volume. And in this case, I want it set to max. And that means that when the crossfader is all the way over to scene B, track 1 will play back at its maximum volume. Now if I hold scene A, the same thing happens. That parameter pops up, and I want to set this to min. That way when the crossfader is all the way to the left, we don't hear that playback loop at all. We hear the live output from the Octatrack and the machine drum. Once that's done, we need to do the same for the other tracks, but in reverse. So I'm going to select track number 2 and hold scene B. And once again, the crossfader volume parameter pops up, and I need to make sure that's set to minimum for all the other tracks besides the one I have recording on, which is track 1 in this case. So track 2, it's set to minimum. track 3 set to minimum, track 4, track 5, track 6, track 7, and in this case track 8 for me is assigned to be a master track, so there's no parameters assignable there. One thing I want to point out really quick is if you hold the scene A button, again that same parameter pops up, but in this case I don't want to lock this parameter to be maximum when the crossfader is all the way to the left, because if that happens it will override my individual volume settings for the track. So this way, when the crossfader is all the way to the right, all the other tracks get muted. They slowly get quieter and quieter until you're all the way to the right, and when it's to the left, they'll play back at whatever volume levels I set with the volume parameter. So I can still adjust my mix down to the internal sounds using the volume parameter. So let's go ahead and select track 1 again and go ahead and try this. I'm just going to press play, and keep in mind, like I said, because the crossfader is all the way to the left, what you're going to hear is both the machine drum and the Octatrack in real time. And now if I go ahead and slide the crossfader all the way to the right, what you're hearing is the recorded loop of the Octatrack and the machine drum. I can go ahead and turn the machine drum volume down and mute some of the tracks in the Octatrack, and everything still sounds the way we want it to. And you can hear that when I crossfade back. So again, this is the live input. And once again, now this is the sampled loop. So one thing I want to point out is that when you are in the record edit screen, this record trigger in the very first part, all that does is tell the Octatrack to, hey, when this gets triggered, sample for 4 bars. It's going to sample for as long as we have set up in our record preferences. So the issue with this, though, I shouldn't say, maybe not the issue, but something to be aware of, is that every time the Octatrack cycles around and starts repeating your 4-bar pattern, it's going to start sampling again. So if you've set up something you want to sample and have that playback while you transition to your next pattern in both machines, you need to make sure you turn the record trig off. Otherwise, it'll continuously be updating the sampling. Every 4 bars, the Octatrack will start sampling again. And that can be an issue when you switch the pattern. Suddenly your parameters will all reset to whatever the default value is for the record playback device on track 1. So I'll go ahead and demonstrate this really quick. I'm going to start recording here, and let's see, I'll just mute some stuff on the machine drum and Octatrack. So now I can turn off the record trig and it'll sample exactly what's playing right now. Slide it over, and now with these, with just this loop playing, I can go ahead and switch to my next pattern. And slowly crossfade to the next song. Okay, so that maybe wasn't the cleanest transition, but it demonstrates the point. One more thing to be aware of is you need to set up these parameters for every single one of your parts and patterns. So all of these scene assignments need to be basically machine-wide if you want to transition to any pattern and have the loop continue to keep playing when you switch to the new pattern. It's also important to point out that you need to save your part after making these assignments too. If you don't, then you can see right here I made the assignment changes to part 3 in my last pattern, and it's got the little asterisk saying that the part's been changed. So if you don't save every part after you make all these assignments I went through in the video, it's not going to work next time you go to use it. So make these changes to all your patterns and all your parts, and make sure you save each one before you go to the next one. Anyway, I hope that helps, and if anyone has any questions, go ahead and put the questions in the comments and I will answer them as quickly as I can. Thank you.